After serving 5 years on active duty as an Army infantry officer, Paul Weber set out to pursue a career as a fitness coach. But like most worthwhile pursuits, his path was anything but linear. He tried in-person training, worked with kids, coached athletes, and tried other routes until he eventually decided to start his own online fitness coaching business. Even then, it took him 6 months before he signed his first client. Fast forward to today, Paul coaches dozens of athletes, has grown his social media following exponentially, and has published over 100 episodes of his fitness themed podcast. This conversation covers his mindset behind his Army transition, what it really takes to build something from scratch, and how he's helping athletes and veterans achieve elite physical performance. Paul's story is such a great example of what's possible when you commit to the long game. Let's jump into it. Most people you talk to when transitioning out of the military have never actually transitioned out themselves. You're probably getting a bunch of opinions from people who plan on staying in until retirement and have no idea how to actually show empathy for your situation. This podcast is about providing fresh perspectives and a front row seat for conversations with successful veterans doing big things after leaving the military. Paul and I go way back. He is a very close friend of the guy that I lived with at Davidson College for 3 years, freshman through junior year. So Paul and I think we met probably freshman year of college and have kept in touch off and on similar paths throughout Fort Benning and otherwise. And coming full circle, man, this is awesome. Jack is a fellow West Point alum, so I was just giving him a hard time, saying, "Don't let your ring shine too brightly in the in the light here."
What year did you graduate, Jack?
I was a 12 guy. Yep.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, so I was a little bit behind you then. I was 15.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well,
And
that's awesome.
how did you guys meet, you and Griff?
Let's say, how should I say it? Jack was graced to have me as his XO in the 173rd.
A truer description has never been uttered.
We worked together in the three shop, then in Bulldog Troop, in 191 Cav, and 173rd in Germany, and then we've kept in touch pretty regularly since then. Jack
Right
left
on.
he left the army officially. Has it been a year, Jack? It's been
Just 11 months. Yeah. So I guess
yeah.
I'm a couple weeks shy of a year now. So
What did you transition into at
real
that time?
estate. Yeah. So my wife and I do pretty much everything under the sun real estate. So if it's a real estate arm, we try to bring it into our company.
Nice, nice.
Jack currently sits in what people call the Raleigh of the Pacific. He's out in Oahu, Hawaii,
Oh, nice.
trying to put
Yeah.
up with the good weather and the golfing 24/7 and those sort of things.
Yeah, yeah, it's so
Right.
tough. So
Yeah,
tough.
there's a tint of red on my face right now because I just got absolutely hammered by the sun the last 2 days. So, Courtney's like, you need to put sunscreen. I'm like, yeah. The sun hits different here for sure. That's definitely. We didn't even like growing. I grew up in Wisconsin. We didn't even know like what the UV index was. That wasn't something anybody checked
Yeah,
because it wasn't a thing. But here it's like very much so impactful.
for sure.
It-
So how did you guys get, I mean, what led to you guys wanting to do this together?
we both had subpar experiences leaving the army, and so we figured we were having a bunch of conversations already about things that we learned throughout the process, things that we could draw attention to help other people going through the process. And then we decided that maybe, there's a million other podcasts out there, but you can never have too many people trying to help veterans and trying to help people that are going through the transition process. And along the way, we've made a lot of awesome connections, not only with people, but with organizations and other folks that we can kind of shed light on, direct people to as they're going through this process, or just transition in general, whether it's military transition or career transition. And so, yeah, it's been a great experience, a great little experiment that we've been doing together for, I guess it's like nine,
Almost
ten
a
months
year.
now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul, nothing on Paul. Paul's at episode 107, or maybe by the time this comes out, it would be like probably 110 of his podcast. So he's got us crushed, but we're in the 30s now and going strong.
Nice. So the intention is to share the stories or the experiences of people who are a little bit further along in their transition, and then veterans hearing that or who are maybe about to transition can do that a little bit more
Yeah.
smoothly.
And
Exactly.
sharing outside the box experiences because I think the military does an okay job of showing you, hey, go work for Amazon or go be a contractor or whatever. But, you know, a lot of our guests on here have been entrepreneurs. It's just, hey, maybe you didn't think of starting this type of company, but we interviewed the person who's doing something unique.
Love that.
Yeah.
We've had representatives from like transition organizations too to just shed light on how they differ from others, what kind of help and resources they offer. Because as you know, as well as anyone, there's tens of thousands of them out there, and it's hard to sift through all of the options. And so we thought, why don't we just highlight some of the ones that are doing things really well, really helping people in a tangible way, and so have them on here too. And a lot, I mean, obviously, vast majority of them are veterans themselves, so it kind of two birds with one stone there. But yeah, trying to highlight some less conventional ways to transition out of the military rather than just going to work at whatever Fortune 500 some junior officer recruiter happens to find
Right.
for you.
And so, what did you kind of start with? Obviously, we talked about West Point already, but you want to talk about where you started in the military and kind of your military experience and lead us up to the transition point?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was infantry, so it was, yeah, I mean, Benning and then Fort Carson. And I was in a striker brigade, deployed once to Afghanistan for 9 months. It was 2018, so it was kind of like they called it uplift at the time, but it was kind of just supporting the Green Berets who were teaching the commandos and leading the missions and trying not to take direct action. They were kind of trying to get away from that and let the commandos do it. But yeah, pretty uneventful for me. I was in a platoon at the time. I was in a platoon for a total of about 2 years. So a year with a rifle platoon and then a year with a mortar platoon. And then I got to that 2 year mark. And by that point, I was really sure that I wanted to be working with athletes and in the gym all the time and working with individuals. So I kind of had learned some things about myself through the Army that, wow, this is really extroverted. This is really dynamic and chaotic, as opposed to like making a plan, executing the plan, evaluating whether that plan worked. Well, it wasn't a lot of that. So it was a lot of reacting and a lot of enthusiasm that I did not have. And so, but just kind of learned that, like first career, learned as I went and did my best. And then, but I was by that point really sure. I was at like, I don't know, maybe 3.5 years into my 5 by that point, and I was really sure that I just want to be working with people on their training, on their nutrition, on their lifestyle. That's what I'm thinking about all the time without having to try to think about it. And so, yeah, I just was honest with my leadership and they put me in a staff job. And that was sort of my last real high leverage role was that like platoon leader role. There were lots of things that I could talk about with the experience in the Army, but we're kind of trying to get to the transition. So I remember sitting with my major, battalion XO, in his office, and he was doing the counseling, the exit counseling. And he was like, so what do you want to do? And the right answers are, I'm going to get my MBA, I'm going to become a CFP, I'm going to go work at Amazon or this defense contractor, whatever. And I literally just said, I'm going to work with athletes. That's what I'm going to do. And he sort of was like, all right, patted me on the head and kind of sent me on my way. But I was just really needed to do something that was intrinsically meaningful to me. And so as far as the actual transition, I got really lucky. I got connected with a CrossFit coach who owned an online coaching business, and I was a client of his. And I said, "Hey, man," this was like a year before my refrad date, and I was like, "Let me just do some work for you for free. Let me just see if I can take something off your plate." So I did some work for him. He let me do it. I did some work for him, and he liked it. And so a few months went by, and I was like, "Hey, I'm going to be getting out in like 9 months, and I think I can help you." I was very assertive in that way because I really wanted the flexibility of remote work. I wanted to be with my family. I'd been gone constantly in the infantry, being in a BCT for 4 years, and I was just exhausted and wanted remote work and wanted to be able to go to the gym every day and run my life around that. I was competing in CrossFit at the time, and so it just seemed like a perfect fit. And he was pretty disorganized about it, but he eventually ended up hiring me. He wore pajama pants to our meeting, flew to Colorado to meet me in person, wore pajama pants to the meeting, just kind of an eccentric guy.
He was
And
used
we
to Zoom calls, right? He was in a button-up shirt on the top half, pajama pants on the bottom half.
It was pretty wild, man. And we're still friends to this day. Obviously, I don't work for him anymore, but it was, yeah, all right, we're gonna try this out and see if this works. I was doing a lot of CrossFit and wanted to just be in that world all the time. And so it just seemed like a good fit. So we negotiated it and it worked out. Now, my major who was counseling me was right, ended up being right in that it was not a direct path to success in the strength and conditioning industry. It was, I did everything over the 4 years from getting out to starting my business of I did personal training out of my house. I worked with kids. I worked with some semi-professional athletes in person. I coached group fitness classes and I was doing my online stuff. So I was doing the fitness coach thing where you're up and coaching first thing in the morning and you kind of have a lull during the day while everybody's at work and then you're working in the gym till 8 at night. And my hourly rate was not great. And I knew that this was not sustainable for the life that I wanted to give my family and the life that I wanted to share with them in terms of time. And so that's kind of brushing over 4 years, but I made the decision about 2 years ago, going on 2 years ago, to start an online coaching business. I had 5 clients that I had inherited from my relationship with my time with my boss. And so I had $1,500 a month in recurring revenue. And I hired a coach to teach me how to get a social media following, how to run a newsletter, how to make compelling offers. And that's what I did.
I do want to double down. Like you said, you got lucky, and then you continued to go like you basically made your own way, which
He,
is
he created a good bit of luck in there for sure.
right. You created the luck, which a lot of people say that, and I appreciate the humility, but frankly, it sounds like you did create those relationships. You did put yourself out there and like actually ask the questions and kind of showed this person, hey, I can provide value for you, and that's a big message that we want other people to pick up on. It's like you can say luck, but frankly, it sounds like you made the luck and you said, hey, I have value. I'm going to provide it to you. And then, eventually, like you said, over time, you built your own thing, that makes sense. But I think that the luck piece, you can definitely put the effort in and sway luck in your favor.
Yeah, Paul, I've always known you as someone who's incredibly introspective, deliberate, and thoughtful about things. And the way that you kind of self-assessed while in the army, it's really easy to get caught up in the culture and all that enthusiasm that you mentioned and not take the time to step back and be like, is this actually me? Is this a fit for my personality and what is going to drive me and give me energy going forward? And the fact that you had the humility and wherewithal to step back and see that it wasn't a great fit is, for one, incredibly admirable. And I'm just curious, what was it? I know you had done sports growing up and I think you were on the rock climbing team pretty actively at West Point and otherwise. Did you know from an early stage that you wanted to work with athletes? Or was that kind of developed through your time in the Army, trying to work through maybe subpar fitness plans that other people had put together and keeping your platoons fit? What was it that kind of gave you that deep-seated idea of what you wanted to do longer term?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know where the curiosity comes from. It was more of a discovery that this is the thing that I am really curious about. And that showed up in lots of different ways. Like I wrote my first workout down when I was 9, had a basically a military style boot camp class in high school that was formative, and then kind of had my first experiences with real athlete development, strength and conditioning in high school. And that coach, he still owns a gym in Reston, Virginia, and he and I have talked since then, as that's part of my story. And then, yeah, when I was competing in rock climbing in college, I was like buying books and writing training plans for myself because I just wanted to. It was all I cared about, really. I mean, I would sit in class and look at training plans, and I was doing crazy things experimentally with my nutrition and making all my own food at a sponsor's house and then bringing it and keeping it in the fridge so I didn't have to eat the mess hall food. I was just obsessed, and I don't know where that comes from. I just discovered it along the way.
Have
And
you
so when
gone
I was,
back to that 9-year-old training plan? Have you used that with any of your clients today?
I've asked my parents if it was like ankle weights. My parents had these ankle weights, and then it was jumping on a mini trampoline with the ankle weights on, and with some push-ups and stuff like that. So, anyways, yeah.
Nice. When you were, I guess, what sort of, I guess, what was the impetus for you to want to do this as your own business? Or is that the normal trajectory as far as working with athletes and doing that sort of thing? Does it just make sense to do it on your own? Or, what led to that transition into your own thing?
Yeah, so I guess I mentioned that I got out and I was working online, coaching group fitness, doing personal training, work with kids. And I was really excited about all of those opportunities because all of them seemed better than what I had been doing in the
Mhm.
military, which just felt like,
They were better than NTC?
yeah, I mean, just being able to like come home to your family every night and sleep in a bed in a dark room and in a temperature controlled room and have enough water, like it's the basic lifestyle guidelines. So yeah, I was excited about all of those things leading up to doing them, and then the first, I would say, like month or two of doing them, there was a lot of excitement. But it wouldn't take much longer than that first month to go by before I was like, this is really not what I'm made for. And I learned by doing those things that I really like to learn and I really like to teach. And so the in-person fitness industrial setup is for lots of like high volume, kind of one-on-one connections with people if you're doing personal training. And generally people they're showing up and they're just like, look, I'm not here to learn. I'm not here to like think about what I'm doing. I'm here for you to tell me what I'm doing. And I'm not really interested in why I'm doing it. And, I kind of feel like I have to be here. Or when I was working with kids, it was like, my parents want me to be here. So whereas I was all I thought about. So I needed to be working with people with a similar amount of curiosity, a similar desire to learn, and with more complex problems. So that was a big reason that I knew I needed to be online.
And I'm curious, just to complete the loop here, you mentioned that you offered to work for free for your former boss, the pajama pants guy. I think, for one, I think that's an amazing approach. You didn't go through like a corporate skills program or any sort of transition program as part of that. You were still very much active duty, working your job while doing work for him on the side. Did you have any other like kind of off ramp or transition programs that you went through?
No, no, I didn't do career skills, although I think that's great if you can get it. I just was in a unit where that was frowned upon for
Mm.
officers. I have friends who were officers who got to do it. I just, yeah, I just didn't. It was bad enough that I was refratting.
Right.
So it was just like relationally and like it just was not something that I thought to ask for. And I did have the job lined up like 5 months before I got out. So I felt like, all right, well, I've already got my transition job and I don't need to, put on a suit and go work for a company when I had a brigade staff job. So that was gotten for me by my former battalion XO who became the brigade XO. And he got me into the brigade public affairs office where I was going to the field a lot less and I was able to do that work for Matt on the side because I had the flexibility to do that. So there was kind of a transition. It wasn't like I wasn't like going from, platoon live fire to getting out the next week. There was a bit of a transition for sure.
Had you come to the 173rd instead of that unit and had our boss, the boss that Griffin and I shared, you might have been committed to the military for the next 30 years. And I say that as somewhat of a jest, but his PT philosophy was longer than his command philosophy. And he was absolutely one of those, like you're saying, like, 6 days a week, super fit guy. And I feel like you and him would have clicked very intensely on the PT side of things. He was an absolute animal. But no, I think how long was it, Griff? Like 7 pages of a PT philosophy?
It was certainly long enough, I'll tell you that. He was one of those rare specimens where, I mean, even in his 40s or like early 40s, he was benching 315 and also running a sub like 11:32 mile. And that combination is very rare, probably anywhere, but especially in the military. I mean, it was very impressive,
Right.
especially for
He
a
was
40-year-old
probably
dude.
one of the, maybe other than you, like one of the fittest people in our battalion. I mean, like out of 400, I mean, could literally just out PT everybody. It was unbelievable.
Yeah,
Um,
absolute beast. But I love
Great.
the fact, Paul, that I mean, we've said this before in conversations, but the fact that you went to that Matt guy, you went to him first and were like, "Hey, I can work for you for free. Here's X, Y, and Z things that I see that I could really help you with." And you say that you had confidence there to be direct with him, but I think that's also, you led with a lot of value, and obviously it was a value proposition that was very interesting to him and resulted in probably a good bit of upside for him as well throughout the time. And then it informed your decision later on. I mean, it didn't pay off for you financially necessarily until you were actually making money with him afterwards, but I assume it paid off in a lot of other ways and lessons you learned, experiences that you gained. And you said something really interesting. I want to rehash here. You said the path to success is rarely a straight one. And I love the fact that you kind of experimented along the way with the children's program, in-person training, working out of your house with your home, like all these things, these little experiments that you kind of ran that formed the building blocks for what you're doing now seem to be probably an invaluable part of your story and how you got to where you are.
So take us at that starting point with the 5 clients. What progressed? What from there? What did you guys, how did you take it, and what did you do to scale?
Yeah, and I'm sure everyone is wondering, like, you had 5 clients with $1,500 a month recurring revenue. Did you have financial stability or financial cushion to take that sort of leap? Or well, I imagine it was a risk and a scary situation nonetheless.
Yeah, I mean, it was pure terror for sure. It really was. But we did have runway from my career in the military and the deployment. You save a lot of money. So it wasn't like we're going to lose the house if we don't get another couple clients this month. But I'm a pretty risk averse person. And so it was terrifying. So much so that I actually got sick. I literally got shingles within a couple weeks of quitting my job.
Wow.
And shingles is like I'm standing in the doctor's office and they're like, "Have you been stressed lately?" It's like literally like even the medical doctors are like, "Hey, your psychological stress is a huge factor in this reaction to this dormant virus." So it's that was like, okay, I have to not be so frantic and find a way to manage my expectations with this, look further out into the future, and realize that I'm not going to win by working till 11 o'clock at night on a nightly basis. I have to sleep, I have to rest, and this is going to take a year or two. So that was a bit of a reset, and am open about that because I know I'm not the only person out there who's started a business and gotten sick. And I've even heard of other business owners who got shingles. And so it's definitely not something that I recommend lightly. It's really, I was in a lot of pain in the military to start. I felt very isolated. I felt like I wasn't doing the things that I was good at unless it was PT or counseling squad leaders one on one. Those were the only things that made any sense to me during that time. And so there was a lot of pain associated with that. And then in those other fitness jobs, there was a lot of pain. And not everybody feels that. And so when I mentor in-person coaches who are thinking about making the transition to online, I try to get a sense for how much pain are you in right now? How bad is it? How much does it bug you that these people that you're working with just show up and want you to, demonstrate an air squat for them? Because the amount of pain that you're going to have to go through to convince the world that you are this authority, you are this teacher, and that this thing needs to exist that doesn't exist. I mean, I had 600 followers on Instagram. I think half of them were bots and the other half were friends. And so it's not something that I just say, hey, you casually go into it. The first 6 months, nothing happened. I didn't sign a single client for 6 months. And I don't even think I got to from 600 to 1,000 social media followers in 6 months. So I was doing 2 podcasts a week. I was posting every day to social media. Instagram was my platform because that's where the people are who I was trying to reach. And nothing happened for 6 months. So right there, how does that sound to you? How does spending most of your work week for 6 months and seeing no return on that? Can you afford to do that? How does that sound to you? Because that's often what's required to make enough content to make it likely enough that you're going to actually break through. So it was pure terror to start. And I had to set expectations with my family, with my wife, and say, this is how much we have saved. We could do this for a year or 2 and run out of money. I'm not going to ask you to move us and our kids out of this house. I will go to Boeing, to Raytheon, to Amazon. I will go knock on their door before I let that happen. So that was a boundary that I set to make her feel safe. But as far as like starting over, I was ready to start over. I was like, that's how much pain I'm in coaching this 16-year-old kid who doesn't want to be here. It was like agony. It was like, I have so much to teach you and you don't care. There's one story that I'll tell. So I was working in a baseball strength and conditioning facility. That's 7:30 at night. And I'm on the weight room floor and there's no clients, so I'm doing some programs for my online clients, and one of the parents comes down. And this guy's maybe, I don't know, 15, 20 years older than me. He comes down and he's like, hey, I wanted to bring my son down and, I wanted you to kind of do some assessment with him. And I was like, sure, yeah, bring him down. So he brings his son down. I work with his son for an hour, one-on-one. And before he leaves, he takes out his wallet and he pulls out a $20 bill and he hands it to me and he's like, hey, be blessed, brother.
Don't spend it
Right.
all in one place.
And then I later found out from my boss that this parent relayed to him that, yeah, I blessed Paul today. I blessed Paul today. So these were the kinds of things that made me feel isolated, like undervalued, underutilized, not really activated. And then starting the business, quitting my job and starting the business was a complete binary switch. I was inspired, activated all the time, too much, right? Because you have all of this anxiety driving you toward massive amounts of action. The only thing that alleviates anxiety is action. So I was doing the most, to the point that in my first year, I made 500 Instagram reels. And when I mentor coaches and I say that number, typically they have in their mind, we're trying to get them posting 2, 3 times a week, maybe every day if they can handle it, right? And it's like, if you don't have the pain, if you don't have the anxiety, then the action won't be there, right? And you don't have to do it that fast, because it will happen faster the more you do. But I wanted it to happen fast. So I was inspired, I was activated, but I didn't do anything else. I completely isolated myself from extended family, from church community, and that hurt my relationships. But that was a trade-off, a sacrifice that at the time made sense to me. And it was like, we'll see who's around when this is over. But I have to make this work. I have to. That's how
Who,
I
who
felt.
who was the business advisor that you kind of honed in on most? And I think you mentioned you got like you paid for coaching, or you got on a coaching program for how to do this. And when did that actually occur? At what point did you choose to pursue the coaching?
Immediately, right away. I quit my job. And I mean, that week I was on a one-on-one call with a coach, and it felt like I was already feeling scarce around money. It felt it was a challenge. I did waffle on it a little bit, but I can say with a very high degree of confidence that the money that I invested in learning from people who had done what I was trying to do and specialized in teaching other people how to do what I was trying to do, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that accelerated my progress.
So this was a specific coach for online fitness trainers, not just a business coach in general, right?
It was not, so it's funny that you say that, because I was at the time, to sort of bring in some money while I was doing this, I was doing the personal training out of my garage. And I was going to a networking group, in-person BNI networking group, to try to get people to do my personal training service. And there was a business coach in that group. And she was working with a lot of local business owners, and I'm sure her service was great, but I knew that what I was trying to do was something really odd and specific. And so I wanted to work with somebody who, yes, was helping online fitness professionals make personal brands and create the life they want through online business. That's who I hired.
And how'd you find that very specific individual? I mean, was it just asking around for referrals?
It actually was a person who I had been following for multiple years. And she was a physical therapist in the CrossFit niche, which was what I had experience in and who I wanted to coach. And so there was some alignment there. And we also had a lot of similarities in temperament. So I knew that we would get along well. And she just came across to me through her content on Instagram as someone who told the truth. And so it wasn't like a lot of the business coaching kind of gimmicky sounding things out there, 30K in your first month and sign 10 clients tomorrow. It was real advice of, hey, this is the long game. We don't know how long it's going to take. It takes however long it takes. These are the inputs though. This is where because I was thinking, I need a branded website. I need a web designer. I need a graphic designer. I need to spend 5 figures like getting this thing going. And she was like, no, you need to post every day on social media. You need a few software subscriptions and you need to find your voice by posting on social media. So that's what I did. And it ended up saving me a ton of capital investment. I was going to spend money on all these things that I didn't need to get started. I just assumed that's what you had to do, but that ended up not being the case.
I love how you talk about the pain that you were feeling, Paul, because I love the saying, change only happens when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of making a change. It's a mouthful, but you were feeling a lot of pain, but you had to so you could reflect back on that as you were making the substantial change in your life, not only for you, but for your family and your overall well being. So I love that the way that you frame someone can so tangibly feel that pain in their current situation and what they're not, the itch that they're not scratching, the passion that they're not feeling. And if you can kind of bottle that and use that, some anxiety is good, and you can fuel that towards the action that is going to drive that change as you talked about. So I love the way you framed that.
Well, I have something with that too, and I'm nowhere near as eloquent as Griffin is, but part of change, it like your situation has to be bad enough to cause the change. If it's just kind of crappy, a lot of people aren't gonna want to change, or they're not gonna want to worsen their situation just to find a better solution at some point down the line.
Good is the
Um,
enemy of great, man.
Exactly, exactly. And I mean, and even more so, like if your job just isn't that bad that you just, have to leave, then maybe that's not going to lead to you doing this. And same with the transition out of the military. I mean, there's a lot of people like, the unknown side of transitioning out is too risky. And I don't like the military, or I'm not loving it in here, but it's not that bad, I guess. And then they just deal with it. But I think your story, it seems like, again, it sounds like you really made your own way. Like you did the things. And that's the crazy thing with all the coaching, all the online, it's the people who don't, and this is a very niche business that you're into. Not everybody has to post on social media to grow their business, but the fact that you did it is why it led to success. So many people just like, oh yeah, I'm going to post every day. And then they don't. It's like that's just a key to growing a following. And it sounds like you're absolutely crushing that. And just coming up with a plan and executing that plan is something that's invaluable for sure.
So I want to take that thought, Jack. So Paul is one of those super rare people that actually does what he says he's going to do, and he does it consistently for years at a time, which is why he has outpaced and outmatched results following those actions. But I'm curious. So, Paul, you said there are a couple of software subscriptions that you use. I'd love to hear what those are. People that post on social media or might be interested in doing that. What tools were super helpful for you in the process?
Yeah, for sure. The single most important tool is Descript,
We use that
which,
too.
yeah, it's just an editor. It transcribes your video. All of my videos are talking heads. So I don't have my shirt off. I'm not demonstrating exercises. It's literally just me talking because that's what I like to do.
But people
And
The
ask for
audience
their
would be
shirt
so
off, don't
lucky.
yeah, I'm sorry. Sorry to disappoint the people.
Yeah, maybe if
Jack
you
and I,
took your shirt off, you get more followers.
that's right.
Oh, I definitely would.
Jack and I have been
Yeah.
spending too much time together. The exact same time we chime in to try and get Paul to take his shirt off. For views on
Uh,
this video, baby. Let's go.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
That's
that's what
right.
I'm talking
Yeah,
about. We
views and
need more
reach.
views.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, Descript was a game changer. I mean, that probably 10x to the number of videos I can do. There are other ones that are AI will automatically edit the videos for you. I have experimented with them. I don't use them. But if I was really strapped for time, like didn't have the financial runway that I had going into this, then I might have used something like that just to produce the volume that you need to produce. So, but I do all mine into script. I like editing the text. I like how it solidifies my thinking about these things that I end up teaching about in webinars and teaching my clients in consultations. So yeah, Descript was the big one. I use ConvertKit for my newsletter. I use Buzzsprout for podcasting. Instagram is my social media platform. I mean, Canva for thumbnails and ads. I don't do very much paid ads, but all my stuff is organic. But there's a lot that I could go into that is probably unique to my industry or is unique to online business. So I could go as deep tactically for someone who might be interested in growing a personal brand on Instagram and running a coaching business. I mean, that's kind of what I know.
Yeah, I mean,
Those are the big
I'm
ones.
uniquely interested in that because that's what my wife Courtney is currently growing her own. We're in real estate, like I said, but there's a lot of untapped potential in just having an Instagram following and having other realtors be interested in what you're doing for success. So I'm super interested in that. But I guess who do you look to now that you have established the business and you're on a trajectory? And I'm not sure if you're continuing to just trying to 10x every single year or what you're trying to do, but obviously that'd be nice for anybody. But who do you look to for guidance now? Like what sort of is there anybody on the future horizon that you look to as a pedestal type of where you want to get to?
Yeah, definitely. So I still work with that same coach. We talk every month for about 90 minutes. I have Voxer access to her, so I will message her, voice message her. If I'm doing a launch or something like that, it's typically more frequent. And yeah, I mean, there's always like more to learn. So like the skills that got me to this level of revenue aren't necessarily the same skills that will take me to the next level. So thinking about hiring a coach next year, thinking about doing some branding. Yeah, just I am starting to think about the next step in scale. And my plan is to continue working with my current coach, until it stops working. So yeah, and there's a relationship there. So I think that's really valuable. There's a level of like vulnerability and trust and understanding that she has of me that allows me to, instead of getting caught up in scale, it's like, well, do you even want to scale to that next level? Do you want to run a staff? Do you want to have DIY services? What services do you actually want to offer? Is that a good fit for you? You can get too bogged down in thinking too much about what is perfect for you. And sometimes you just got to take action and grow and then see how that feels once you grow. But yeah, I still work with my current coach right now.
What you said there, I like that you're acknowledging the fact that she knows your business really well as a coach or as a mentor is really beneficial. And I think the takeaway for our listeners really is like you have to be honest about what the faults are in order to kind of actually address those. And it's easy to say like, hey, well, I hire this coach and I might not tell them everything that's going on that's actually like creating limiting factors for why your business isn't growing. But the more honest you can be about what's actually limiting your company is what's going to provide that growth and allow that mentor to actually focus on the things that can be improved upon. So that's a great point. That's that this coach just knows your business really well because of the time that you've been with her. I think that's a big takeaway for people.
And for people that are thinking about getting a coach, Paul, whether it's a business coach or any other more specific request, and you don't have to say what the pricing structure is now or anything, but what was it when you were first looking at working with her? I mean, was it like a couple $100? Was it $1,000 a month to work with? Because you were pre-revenue. You talked about all this anxiety. You felt financially constrained, but yet you took the leap to work with them. So what could somebody reasonably expect? Is there like an onboarding fee or what's a reasonable price structure for somebody looking at a coach?
Yeah, for sure. So it was $400 for the first call, and I did $400 for that initial call, and then I think I did another call like 3 months later. But in between there, I also did a group cohort with another coach that was four figures. That was like 3 or 4 thousand that I invested in that course, and that was super helpful. So I did that as well, which I should mention because that definitely accelerated my progress as well. I literally think that you cannot go wrong investing in learning. I think that coaches have to audition for clients all the time on social media, and we have to put ourselves out there, and you can get a very good sense of someone's personality through their content. And I think Two, I would look at who your influences on social media are. If you are thinking about starting a personal brand, that's one of the questions that I ask people who are thinking about this is, who are the accounts that you like, that you find yourself going back to and consuming their content? Because that's a clue to who you are and what sort of content is going that you can make that you are going to like. I like the stuff that I make. I don't feel like I'm working when I make it. I'm learning when I do it. I research, so I get to learn through that, and then I get to teach what I learn. And that's a great book that I would point people to is Values Factor by John DeMartini. That can be really insightful for discovering your values. Seven Habits, Stephen Covey is great for sort of crystallizing some of these things. But ultimately, when it comes to like the very first step of personal brand and online business, it's you got to make content. And what people invariably find when they start making content is they have no idea what to say. So, but you learn what you have to say by saying things. You don't figure it all out by reading these books and then showing up and making, A+ content. And another exercise I like is go to that account that is super successful, multiple hundred thousands of followers or millions of followers, whatever they have, and look at the number of times they have posted. And it's going to be in the thousands, most likely. So they did not, on their very first podcast, on their very first Instagram reel, whatever it is, sound that good. They got good with reps. And so a lot of times with beginners, it's about getting them to focus on just hit post. Just hit post. You don't have to know what to say. You're going to find out what you have to say by saying it.
Yeah, that
I think
overnight
Mr.
success
Beast-
is just on the other side of a couple thousand posts or a couple thousand reps, right?
Exactly.
Well,
Yeah.
Mr. Beast puts that out, right? He's like, the first 100 videos you make are gonna suck. Just make the first 100 and improve on something each time, and by the time you hit the 100th, then your videos will actually be good. And that way, that's what. But if you never start, if you think you're gonna make the perfect video, the first video you make is wrong. You're not gonna hit the jackpot on the first one.
I was going to mention that same exact thing, Jack. And before I saw a squirrel and got distracted earlier, I was mentioning the fact that, Paul, you've gone, you mentioned you're at 600 Instagram followers, 300 of which were some random bots, maybe. Now you're at 11,000 or more. I mean, incredible growth. And you said that almost none of that was in the first 6 months. So we're talking in less than 18 months that most of that growth, that hockey stick growth has happened. And I'm curious, as you post, and as you create content, is there a system that you employ, or is there a practical way that you've been able to make one small, like 1% improvement each time, like Jack is mentioning from Mr. Beast? Or is there a way that you've found to kind of practically find your voice? And I don't want to like over analyze this point here, but how do you just get a little bit better each time through these thousands of posts that you've made in the last couple of years?
Yeah. I mean, so yes, I definitely have a system. I like work batching. I don't like switching between tasks. So I'm doing this on a day where I take consults. So I've already been on Zoom with clients for 4 hours today. And so it's an easier transition. Not everybody's brain works like that, but I like the long, uninterrupted blocks of time. And the people I know who make a lot of content, that is, they're leveraging work batching in some way. So as far as my system, I mentioned a script. I film everything on my phone. It's not high tech. I use the rear facing camera. I sit in this chair in this exact position. I have my notes up,
I knew I
and I hit
recognized you.
record. Yeah. And I record the thing. And so that's what works for me because I like talking. But some people who I get started doing this stuff, are they like to be in the gym and they like to be demonstrating exercises, and it's easy for them to, between personal training clients, do a quick video of themselves training and throw that up there. I'm like, good, do that. Hit post, right? That's rule number 1, 2, and 3 is hit post, and do that consistently and enough times to where a message, a common thread between these things does start to emerge. But as far as my system, yes, I like work batching. So I research and record. I was doing 2 podcasts for a really long time, but I don't have time to do that anymore. So I just do 1 a week. And I do that Monday when I'm fresh and inspired because I'm coming off the weekend. And I love that I don't have to jump into my week and start servicing people. I do my creative work when I'm the most fresh, and I really like that. So that's what I do all day Monday. I don't do anything else. And then on Tuesday, I'm consulting, so it's more relational. On Wednesday, I'm programming, so that's really like the mechanistic. There's a creative component, but it's solitary work, and that's all I do. Wednesday, Thursday, I take consults again. And then Friday, I write my newsletter and edit those videos using Descript. So that's my weekly work rhythm. And the work batching, I think, is a game changer for doing enough volume.
I think anyone working for a company right now is like, wait a second, you're fresh on Monday? You're not just dreading the work week? The perks of being an entrepreneur and owning your own business, right? So, Paul, where are you now? You mentioned you were at 5 clients, 600 Instagram followers. Now you're at north of 11,000 Instagram followers. To the degree that you're comfortable, can you share like how many clients you have now and kind of the scale of how this thing has grown in the first, less than 2 years?
Yeah, for sure. I have 24 clients now. My rate is $250 an hour. So for coaching, that's $375 a month for ongoing coaching. And then I have a quarterly workshop, which I sell for $50 to $100, and I promote for 2 weeks and yeah, get people on Zoom and teach for an hour or 2 and then take their questions. So I do that quarterly. And then I have mentor meetings that are 90 minutes for people who want to go deep on this stuff on the business side, or for coaches who just they don't want ongoing coaching, but they want to basically audit what they're doing. So I'll do 90-minute meetings for those. I get a few of those a month. So yeah, those are my service offerings.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Incredible growth and a huge testament to your discipline and persistence through the process. Well, Paul, as we start to kind of wrap up here, there's a 2-part question that we ask every guest. One is, first part being one way that anybody listening to this could help or provide value to you.
Oh boy, help or provide value to me. Yeah, I mean, so if you know somebody who is a CrossFit hybrid or tactical athlete who is looking to see how far they can go, maybe they're looking to compete in CrossFit, maybe they are already a high level competitor, maybe they're looking to get selected. That's my clientele. So yeah, paulbweber.com or at paulbweber on Instagram. They can check my content out, see if it makes sense to them and see if I'm their guy. Yeah, I'm still taking one-on-one clients. So I'm not quite at max capacity yet for one-on-one, but I'm getting there. So that's really what I'm pushing right now.
Awesome.
And do you do diet and nutrition as well?
Yeah. Nutrition is part of the service offering. Yeah.
And then the second part of that question is one give. You've provided a lot of value to people listening to this, and we really appreciate that. Any other thing you would offer or give to anybody listening to this conversation?
Yeah. I mean, all I can really say is, from my personal experience, and I think that the pain was, and that animating you, that leading to massive amounts of action. And I would just say that, you don't have to do this. There's a lot of galvanization in entrepreneurial culture and hustle culture, and it's great all the time, and it's like, it is great, I wouldn't trade it, but it is a huge sacrifice. And so I would just, if you're right for it, you'll know, because going to work every day will like make you very uncomfortable. So yeah, that's what I would say to somebody who's maybe thinking about entrepreneurship, is it's going to take a lot of activation energy to get you to do what's required for this. And there's a huge sacrifice attendant to it. And you got to be really uncomfortable in what you're doing for it to be worth it, for it to even make sense to do. And so, but for those people who are like feeling that simmering discontent and feeling a lot of pain in what they're doing, like there is a way out of that. You can do it.
Well said. I'm curious, Paul, maybe last tactical question here. For someone who's maybe post-military time or transitioning out, one thing I've noticed is a lot of people struggle to maintain their fitness. They don't have a forcing function of PT tests and maybe PT every morning and the camaraderie around it. What is a way that someone in that situation can continue to invest in their fitness? Maybe they're not an elite, not trying to compete in the CrossFit games. They're not maybe quite a fit for the type of athlete that you're looking for, but they want to maintain great fitness and a great healthy lifestyle. What should they invest in, and kind of what are some steps they could take now that they've left the military?
Yeah, I mean, I think that fitness is actually for someone looking to just be vital. It's pretty simple. It's drink water, 50 to 60% of your body weight in ounces of water per day, clean water, ideally. Eat real food. So eat things that are minimally processed and provided by the earth, plants and animals. Pick it, kill it, grow it. And move every day. Find a way that, find a sort of movement that you like. Know that nobody is forcing you to do this. And you're free to move for yourself. There's not a drill sergeant counting your push-ups or timing your runs anymore. Some people like having the drive to compete in something, and that can mobilize your motivation. And so that's fine, but you don't have to seek that out. You can just do this for yourself. You can go rock climbing. You can go trail running. You can play pickleball. You can, there's lots of options, but movement is essential. That's really the irreducible thing.
You definitely had me at pickleball. I love that.
Yeah. Now they say racket sports actually add years to your life. I'm not sure pickleball is in that realm, but
Just a baby racket.
right.
Well,
Right.
Paul, this has been great, man. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us. And just can't say how impressed I am by what you've built, what you continue to do. And I know that anyone listening to this will take a lot of value from not only your story, but it's something so tangible about feeling where you were and where you've come and being able to relate with that journey that I think a lot of people will really appreciate. So, any final thoughts or parting advice for someone that's transitioning out of the military or who has maybe already undergone that transition, is now finding their way in the civilian world?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say that you don't have to have everything figured out. That's what I would say. There can be an ongoing process of discovery, and just stay open and learn. And not everyone is going to have this agony with putting the uniform on or putting a suit on. And so some people that is a great way to live, and there's nothing wrong with that. So, but yeah, you guys kind of sounds like are highlighting some unconventional paths from the military forward. And I hope that anybody listening got, yeah, a glimpse into what some of the other options are.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's an inspiration because I think just to double down on what Griffin said, it's like, not everybody just gung ho loves what they're doing, and it's okay. That's okay. Like it's,
Yes.
find something that you can be super interested in and that can, kind of you're not going to work every day type of thing. But I think, you're an example of that. Like, hey, you, I think Griffin mentioned it, but I think it's worth doubling down on. Like, it's not easy to say, hey, this isn't for me, right? Especially in the military, because you're surrounded by a lot of people who at least act like it is 100% for them. And there's a lot of people in the military. And the last thing that I'll say is there's a lot of people that look down on you if it's not for you. And I think that when you say, no, this isn't for me, it's almost some leaders in the military take it as like a personal attack, like they did the wrong thing. And I don't like that. That couldn't be further from the truth. And for people who are thinking of transitioning out, just know that there's millions and millions of people who have transitioned out who never, that there's at least something on the other side of the fence. I'm not saying the grass is always greener, but if the grass is burnt and not growing for you in the army or the military, maybe it's time to think about what the other side looks like.
Well, this has been great, Paul. And I would just say to anyone listening to this, as you heard from Paul's story, the path to success is rarely a straight run, if ever. Sometimes it might take working for someone for free. It might take, spending 6 months without getting a single client, with only getting a few followers on Instagram or wherever, but persevere through it, because as Paul's story is such a clear example, it's worth it, but you got to stick with it and you got to be disciplined to continue on a regular daily basis. So thank you, Paul. This has been great, man.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Veteran Ventures Podcast. If you heard something interesting or found the show to be helpful, send it to a friend who is transitioning out of the military or considering a transition. We'd also really appreciate if you left a rating and review of the show. That helps us reach more people with these amazing stories of successful veterans. We'll catch you next time on the Veteran Ventures Podcast. And until then, go do the thing. Make that decision, have that conversation, and go find your next mission.